All right, we are live. Welcome everybody to our first holistic live. We're not quite sure what we're going to be doing yet, but we know today had to be done. Today being Halloween, and we were talking about, actually, we were talking about saging. Comes to find out, saging is part of smudging, as Lauryn had let us know. And apparently, staging is also considered some kind of bad thing by some people and considered part of witchcraft, evil, and other stuff, which I didn't know that either. So I thought this would be a great day to dispel those myths and learn some stuff. So first, let me introduce us. My name is Dee. This is Lauryn. And we met through a program called Soul Project. The reason I started on that journey myself was because I am disabled. I have tons of problems, and I was looking for something to help me. I no longer have a colon, so I can't just, everybody's first thing is eat healthy, eat better kind of thing. And yeah, trying to eat raw is what landed me in a hospital twice because I just couldn't digest that. So I ended up losing my colon. Anyway, I wanted to continue that journey. So what I did find, the products that we work with were just whole foods in a capsule, fruit, vegetables, and berries. It's 3 different lines. And because it's just like dehydrated in a capsule, I didn't have to digest it. I absorbed it. And for the first time in all my life, I am now sitting here smiling with you. Before, and I'm in the light. I know it don't seem like much light, but it's snowy here in Chicago. For the first time ever, normally I would have a migraine at this point. We don't even have a really bright light because I've never been able to use them. So it's just all really weird. So anyway, with that program and product, I was able to help myself get better, not heal. There's no cure for Crohn's or anything else. But my journey still had to continue. And along the way, my youngest was diagnosed with juvenile RA at age 9. So we put him on the products and they had great improvement, but the pain was so bad that it caused him to go into depression. So a lot of what his doctors work with were holistic methods and stuff I've always believed in. You got to heal it all, mind, body, and spirit. So I was so excited. I'm like, this is something I know. I know how to journal. I know how to, be positive. And no, it turns out it's a whole world more. It's so much more stuff available. As I dug deeper, I saw there's a world of everything. I mean, even essential oil is considered a holistic thing, Didn't know that. So anyway, that's going to be something else we do later. So, okay, that's enough yip yap here. I am going to turn it over to Lauryn, who's going to tell us all things smudging, dispel the beliefs, let us know exactly what it is, when to use it, and all the good stuff. If you have any questions, we are live right now in our Facebook group. You can ask the question there. And if you're on Zoom, just type it in chat, and then we'll get to that question. So take it away, girl.
All right. Oh, my goodness. Thank you, Dee. First of all, happy Halloween to everybody that's tuning in maybe later. Happy Samhain, Feliz Dia de los Muertos, wherever you are, whatever you're celebrating. I am in Mexico at the moment. So we obviously have a lot of festivities coming up because they celebrate not just one day, but multiple days. So throughout the weekend, lots of fun things going on over here, which is super exciting. I just want to thank you, Dee, for inviting me to this. I got interested because Dee had posted in the group some things about saging, and I had seen it. They were having a discussion about it, and she was like, I really don't know anything about this. Does anybody want to shed some light on it? And I instantly was like, I do. Because saging's helped me out a lot. It's been a really important part of my ritual and practice and time with myself. And so I was more than happy to jump on and tell you guys what I've learned and what my experience with it has been. And like Dee mentioned, we did meet working through the Soul Project. And a lot of the work that we do is trying to incorporate a healthy body, like Dee discussed telling her story, and also healthy mind and spirit. And I think that's where this ritual of smudging, as it's called, comes in, right? And most popularly known was sage, because I think saging, as it was brought up originally, is by far the most popular herb that's used in this practice, but not the only one. Okay, so smudging itself is just the practice of burning herbs. So you can use, like we mentioned, you can use sage. I actually have a little sage bundle here. I don't know if you can see this. See, it's really pretty. The colors actually used to be more pretty, but some of these flowers have been dried up. And then there's also another favorite of mine, which is Palo Santo. Palo Santo is a wood, if you can see that here. Those are the two that I use the most common and probably the most commonly used. But smudging itself as an art is not a new thing. You know, I think with more interest in holistic health that's been brought to the public's attention in the last 5 years, these things are kind of catching on. But it's a practice that's been going on for hundreds and even thousands of years in some cultures. And so the ancient belief, according with smudging, is that the smoke itself is going to purify or clean the airspace. And if you're looking at the smoke, it's basically taking away all of that negative energy and it's lifting the smoke back up to the heavens, right? Because we know that smoke rises. And so it's just that ritualistic idea of like getting rid of the things that don't serve us anymore. So people are smudging in different cultures and traditions for all different reasons. But the primary theme of smudging that's agreed upon is that it's purifying the airspace of unwanted energy, okay? So most people, like I said, will use sage to do this, and there is no right or wrong way necessarily to do it. But people have been doing it for a really long time within temples. You know, I remember when I first started traveling Asia, that is where I started seeing it a lot, you know, especially in the forms of incense. And then even here in Mexico, Central and South America, we have copal, which is a more popular herb that can be cultivated in Central South America. So depending on where you are in the world, you'll see this practice in all different forms of ritual, not necessarily associated with religion. But I think, like Dee mentioned, it does get a bad rep because people associate it with witchcraft, which witchcraft, unfortunately, can be associated with something evil. And we know this isn't necessarily the truth. You know, even if you know nothing about witchcraft, we have this Hollywood version that we've seen, you know, of it being witches and ghouls and scary and bad spirits, and witches are bad in practice, right? We have the dark witches, the black cats, you know, kind of all of this loaded imagery around witchcraft and Halloween and the rooted pagan beliefs where all of this comes from are also, in a sense, associated with witchcraft or Wicca. And I could do a whole different things on the variety of all of these, but I'm not going to do that right now. But just know that those practices and those ideas do come from pagan traditions as well as other ancient religions all over the world, but they're not rooted in witchcraft. And also, witchcraft is not evil. So let's dispel that myth right now in the name of Halloween. But yeah, so for me, let's talk about my saging journey, for example. It basically started with me burning incense when I was, oh my goodness, as soon as I could. When I was like 18 years old, I would go get incense. I always loved burning them. My dad called it my hippy dippy stuff. My hippy dippy phase is what he loved to call it. He used to always tell me not to burn that S-H-I-T in his house, as he used to like to put it. But as I got older, I think he kind of started to realize it was just going to happen anyways. And even when I go home to this day, I'm always carrying, you know, sage, Palo Santo, incense, because those are things that I do like to burn. Calms me down. It helps me with my anxiety. And I'm going to go into a little bit more of that later. But it started with just this wanting to like smell these lovely things, you know, that wasn't just candles and aromatherapy, and realizing that my mood was greatly affected when I was burning something like that. You know, I also like to just watch the smoke rise. You know, who isn't mesmerized by sitting around a fire? I think we can all understand 100%. Dee throws her hand up. Yeah, me too. We all know how like meditative and calming that practice can be. And so I think that is part of the belief around smudging as well, is just looking at the smoke, being able to watch it pull everything away, being able to watch it float away. You know, it is a practice in itself, and it's just a moment where you're being mindful. And we do lack a lot of this in the current world. So I was burning the incense, like I said, for a really long time, not really understanding why I was doing it, just knowing that I enjoyed it. And then it was about 5 years ago when one of my friends brought up the word smudging to me for the first time. And I didn't realize that, in a sense, I had kind of been practicing this for a while. So once she actually introduced me to it in a more proper way, I remember going to a workshop with her where we learned how to wrap our own sage bundles. And so they had harvested all the fresh sage, and all you have to do, as you can see, is just string and other like pretty fresh cut petals and flowers and things. And so all that we did was we just sit around and we put them together, we cut them down to similar sizes, we wrapped them up, and then we were using them in a meditation after that, which was really cool, because that's when I started to understand like the connection between slowing the mind down and taking that time for meditation. And as a part of that ritual, whatever it is that you're doing, whether or not you're meditating, but just adding a bit of this practice into it, okay? So the history is dating back really far in regards to all of this. We know that even ancient cultures in Europe, for example, they used to use sage to fumigate pests off of people and animals. So they were using this as an antibacterial back in the day, even before we had the science to understand that this was an antibacterial, right? So I find it amazing, you know, how often do we find about ancient cultures doing things, and we know at the time that they might not have had the science behind it, but they were doing something right. And so we're always saying, how did they know that? Well, we're not sure, but we do know that they realized that the practice of smudging and burning sage or Palo Santo or whatever it was, depending on which part of the world they were in, had these antibacterial properties, right? And now we have the science that's actually backed up behind this. And so they've done studies, which are pretty amazing, that show if you burn sage in a closed room, so obviously you wouldn't want to have all the windows open, because I'll talk about that in a little bit, but if you have all your windows open and you're burning sage at the same time, or burning Palo Santo, you're essentially just pulling that straight out the windows. Okay, so it's really important to try to like contain the space when we want to sage, so that it can really get itself into all these cracks and crevices. And so this is what they were doing when they were fumigating people with sage, right? Is they were putting them in these small spaces to try to use this antibacterial properties to get rid of parasites and all of these bugs and things that obviously burdened cultures before us. Yeah, so I think it's really interesting. Like, they've done these studies now with regards to sage specifically, and they've shown in a closed space, it will actually remove 94% of airborne pathogens. So over 90% of airborne pathogens being removed from a space is pretty amazing, right? So it's easy to look back now and to say like, oh my gosh, these people knew that, but how did they know that, you know? But now we have the science, and we do understand that there's actually a huge benefit to this. And they've shown that the smoke can actually increase the oxygen supply to the brain as well, and which in turn will release tense muscles. So people that are suffering from stress, suffering from sore muscles, any of these ailments can also be contributed and has shown to have positive effects on like the oxygen supply throughout the body. And I think one of the big concerns that Dee mentioned as well would be asthma. Like, is it safe for people with asthma? I have asthma. I was actually diagnosed when I was 2. And I've had asthma my entire life. I never really grew out of it. You know, I still have a couple times a year where I get triggered, especially when it's allergy season, or when I'm traveling like into a new environment. Quite typically, I can have allergy flare-ups like the first couple days that I get off the plane. And so knowing that like I myself have asthma and I'm able to be around this smoke, I know for me, it's been totally fine. But if you're someone that does have really severe asthma, you know, I think using a little bit of common sense, like don't put your face directly in it. Or maybe you could have somebody else sage the room or the space for you, I would maybe recommend. and then come into the space afterwards to see how that feels for you. Because if you can walk into the space after the room has been saged and you're still like, okay, I feel fine, it's not affecting me in any way, then I think that's a good sign for you that it's going to be okay to sage. Some people like to just burn sage and have it in the background because it really smells nice, but they've shown that there's a direct link to helping us with anxiety and promoting like a calm mood, which even before I knew this science, I 100% felt that in my own practice, because that's part of the reason I was drawn to it. And then, so talking about like anxiety and promoting a good mood, I know that for me, from experience, that's what brought me into it. I just knew that whenever I would burn some sage, whenever I would like take the time to light some candles and just kind of have that little space for ritual for myself, it did calm me down and it brought so much clarity in. And it was kind of like a really big exhale type of release for me, if I can explain that properly. And so when I started learning about the science behind it, I immediately saw the connection because I had felt that myself. So other cultures let's talk about some other cultures. Like, we know Native Americans have been smudging for forever, right? This is a huge part of their practice. Here in Central and South America, they have temazcal, these big huts that you will actually go sit inside and like sweat out. And they are smudging inside of those. They're burning a lot of different herbs and things like that to help detoxify the body. So there's so many different cultures that practice this in all these different ways, but the theme is the same, using the smoke as something to clarify and cleanse the energy. So I think, looking at smudging and linking it to witchcraft and thinking that witchcraft is linked to something negative, right? Like, all of these things can get a little bit twisted, but the whole idea behind it is the opposite. The whole idea is literally just to purify that airspace, to like get rid of that negative energy, because we don't want that. And so, knowing that all of these cultures, even Catholics, like I grew up going to a Catholic church sometimes, and during different holidays, they would be burning incense as well, so not a complete, see, I'm getting a nod over there. It's not like it's just these Oriental cultures or Native American cultures that were doing this. But the Maori in New Zealand, they also use this as a practice. Oh my goodness, who else? Buddhists, like I mentioned, in Central, Southeast Asia, like you will see this in every temple. And when I was living in Thailand, it was a part of a ritual, right? When you would walk into temple, you would actually pay a small amount of money for an incense, and you would sit there in front of the altar, you would light that incense, and then you would set an intention behind it, which I think is really amazing. I remember always watching this and eventually kind of learning how to do that for myself when I was living there. And that's a huge part of it that I've incorporated into my saging practice now, is when I do sage, I always set an intention for what energy it is that I do not want anymore, what it is that I'm uninviting into my life. And so I think, the ritual, understanding the power of words and knowing that you're doing this little thing for yourself, you're cleansing the space and you're declaring what you don't want in your life and welcoming in what you do want in your life. Like, there's power behind that. Of course there is. There's power behind that ritual. There's power behind understanding those words. And so for me, that's been the practice of it. To get into the how, what, why, all of that fun stuff. So the how, basically, you can go ahead, you could make your bundles yourself if you have access. If you're in the Midwest, like Dee right now, you're probably not going to be finding too much sage at the moment. But you can get these from any like metaphysical store, for example, or maybe Whole Foods health store. Sometimes you can find sage bundles, even like head shops, places like that. Sometimes they will sell these for like a couple dollars, and these burn for a really long time. So as you can see, like mine's already been burnt a little bit, but they will burn forever. Like if I let this continue to burn, it would probably go 15 hours, maybe more. I mean, they really do go for a long time. This is multiple uses, and as you can see, it's just barely gone. But yeah, so the practice of it itself is I would take one of these, and then you want to make sure you put it in something, okay? Because you're not going to want to just like lay it on the ground. It's going to light something on fire. We don't want to do that. And also don't put it in anything that's plastic, because common sense people, plastic will melt. So just make sure, we don't want melting plastic. We know that that's actually really toxic. So you would be drastically altering the energy in the room by adding some burning plastic to it. Don't do that, not advisable. So finding something like glass, just know that glass is gonna be hot, or tin, bronze, whatever it is that you could put it in. And then lighting the top of the sage itself can sometimes take a little bit more effort. And I've learned that if you're holding a lighter to it, it can take a lot longer for it to actually start to light up properly. So what I prefer to do is to just dip it like into a candle, because that flame will get it going a lot faster and more consistently than you sitting there with a hot lighter over and over. And then once it gets going and you can actually tell that it's lit up, similar to an incense, it'll have a bit of that like orange glow on it. Then you're just gonna go ahead and blow out the remaining, so there's only the smoke that's left, because we don't wanna start any fires. And know as well that you can let this keep burning, and more than likely it's not gonna burn out if you properly lit it. If you light it and you find that it is burning out after a half an hour, that's okay if you just want a half an hour, worth of smoke. But if you want to do like a proper sage of a space or a house, then I would definitely recommend getting it properly burning. Otherwise, you're just going to keep having to return to the candle over and over. But once it starts burning, it'll keep burning, like I said. And the only way really to get it to burn out is to put it in some sand. Because if you're just trying to like dab it out, they don't really go out so well. So you're gonna have to cut off the oxygen supply to the end of the sage bundle. And so what I do, like I mentioned, is I just have a little jar of like sand or dirt or whatever, because then you can just extinguish it in that. You could do water. I mean, that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but just know that it might not dry the inside of the bundle. And in the future, you're gonna wanna make sure that this is nice and dry, or it's just not gonna stay lit properly. So I wouldn't recommend that unless you don't have another choice, right? So that's a little bit about that guy. Palo Santo. Palo Santo is more of a Native American smudging. So here in the Americas, we will see this one a lot more often. The smell of Palo Santo is a little bit different, but I love it. It kind of reminds me of cedar. So if you've ever burnt like the fresh smell of like cut cedar or burnt cedar, like it smells a little bit like this. And this one as well is similar. It takes a lot more to get it lighting, unlike an incense. And so same thing, you're just gonna have to make sure it gets lit and then stand it up somewhere so that it's not gonna go out. And then if you wanna put this guy out, usually you can just knock the rest of the charcoal that's burned off on the tip and then just kind of smother it in the same way. So it's really easy. And then once I know that I have it going, I'm gonna go ahead and make sure all of my windows are closed in my house. If I decide that I'm gonna cleanse this space, for example, let's use the house. You're gonna wanna close all of your windows, and you're gonna wanna make sure that the airflow, isn't moving through your house. You don't have any open doors or anything like that. And you're really gonna wanna take the time to walk around the entire house and try to get it nice and slowly into all of those cracks and all of those crevices and all of those corners. Just holding on to it and doing like a really fast lap around your house. It's not really the same. So really like take the time, like we were speaking about earlier, take the intention to think about like, what energy is it that I'm trying to get out of this space? Quite often, saging is a practice, like you get a new office or you get a new job and you want to sage the old energy of those people in that place and then bring in like a fresh slate, your new energy. Okay, so like an out with the old, in with the new type of situation. And so that's where this practice typically comes from. But we also have, for me, for example, there's a lot of whys in terms of why I smudge. So I obviously do it when I move into a new space, or if I've had like some negative house guests for a couple of days and you just feel like you need to get that energy out of there. Or even if it's not negative house guests, right? Like sometimes we know we're all affected by energy or vibes or intuition or your gut feeling or whatever it is that you want to call it. We all know what that feeling is. We could all connect to it. And anytime I have that feeling of like, oh, maybe I'm being really empathetic today. Like maybe I've absorbed a lot of people's energies. Like I haven't really been able to take care of myself. Like for me, those are the times where I feel like, okay, I need to take a second and I need to just like wipe the slate clean. And that's where the practice of smudging has been so valuable to me. And literally the energy shift after I do this for myself is incredible. Like it's amazing. You know, get in a fight with your best friend, have heated words with your partner, any of this types of stuff that you want to just like get yourself out of, you know, those moods where you're like, oh, I'm stuck here. That's that stuck energy, right? And so that's where this practice comes in huge, is being like, okay, like I can feel this is stuck. I can feel it's like sitting in this part of my body and it needs to move its way through. And that's where smudging has come in for me so much. Most recently, I was smudging a lot because I've been sick. Like I've had a little bit of a stomach thing the last 10 days. And so I've been doing a lot more, like almost daily smudging of my house and my space to get rid of those antibacterial, like all of the bacteria that's floating around in the air, all of the things that I don't want into my house. So after an illness is also a really good time to think about some smudging, or in the middle of it, you know, as long as it's nothing respiratory that you're struggling with, right? And we know that this isn't going to be an issue, because if you're not sure if smudging is right for you, do not try it when you're in the middle of an illness. Okay, it's not a good time to start. Maybe wait until you're feeling healthy and then do it in the way that I recommended earlier. Let's see, other examples of when to smudge. Oh my goodness. If you're feeling really fatigued or exhausted, this has also been a big one for me. You know, that's just that stuck energy though. That's the same exact thing of like feeling very like, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I'm overworked, I'm emotionally like not alert at the moment. You know, we've all been there. And so I think for me, that's when it's also been really huge. I like to do it before I meditate. And this might not be the full practice of smudging, where I like literally devote a half an hour to walking around my house, to setting the intention to doing it like that. It might be just so simple as me just lighting my Palo Santo and just letting that burn out for a half an hour while I do my yoga practice or while I do my meditation. I also like to do this sometimes, like Dee mentioned. Oh, are you talking?
Yeah,
Oh, it just popped over to you really quickly.
I am so sorry, because I wanted to, like, while you're on there, right? Because my mind, I'm so blown. Number one, you don't even know. I want to. You have no idea. This clears up like so much, right? But while you're on the reasons, and God, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, go.
Forgive me for interrupting, but
Mm-hmm.
like especially when you were saying with illness and like all the other reasons we would want to, how often can we or should we? Do you know what I mean? Like, is
Yeah.
that also a thing? Does it matter, like, what we're smudging with? Would that be, a thing? Can you also like hit on that a little?
Sure, absolutely. So for me, it doesn't matter what you're smudging with necessarily. One isn't going to be more powerful than the other. But if you're talking about dealing with illness, I would specifically use sage. Not that you can't use Palo Santo or cedar or lavender. All of those things would also be beneficial. But a sage, as well as maybe a bit of eucalyptus. Like if you can get sage and eucalyptus bundles wrapped, especially for me, I really like that combo if I've been feeling sick. Or even the act of something like doing, the minute you start to feel sick, you could do a sage of the house then, because we're aware of the fact that we're sick. We're aware of the fact that we're carrying these bacteria at the moment. And so the minute you realize you're feeling sick, it would be beneficial to go ahead and smudge the house. Because I think that's also a really important conversation with yourself and your body, of setting the intention of like, I acknowledge that I'm feeling like this. I acknowledge that there is something that needs to move its way through my body, and I'm setting the intention right now by doing this ritualistic practice that I'm going to get rid of anything that isn't serving me. You know, you're giving permission to your body to allow that to leave. and using the sage as kind of a catalyst for that practice. And so, you know, at the Soul Project, we always talk a lot about the trifecta of health, right? And so we know how important it is to kind of wrap all of these things together. So you're feeling it in the body, you're feeling it on an emotional level, and then you're going ahead and you're taking these steps to like smudge. So like you said, right away, you're noticing that you're sick. You can do this like from day one. And then I've been doing it almost every day. I've missed a day in between on the days that I felt a little bit better. But especially the days where I felt my energy is really stuck, or if I wake up feeling really sluggish, it's helped me a lot. For people that do have a bit of an issue with sleep too, I've heard, okay, this isn't from personal experience, but I have friends that swear by it before they sleep. So if you're looking for better sleep because you're not feeling so good, lavender is a really good one to smudge with before bed. It's very calming. It's also very anti-anxiety. So the process of doing that with lavender is good. And then if you're feeling sick, I would do it, like I said, every day, every 2 days, and then a really big proper smudge after you've been sick, especially if you have other people in the house with you, because this is a really good way of making sure that we're not like getting everybody else sick too. And then in terms of all of the other herbs that you can use, I could use Palo Santo as well if I'm feeling sick, but if you're talking about health specifically, I really prefer sage. I've just found the sage to like feel better to me. The smell of it, breathing it is a lot easier than some other herbs. So I think if you're feeling sick, you know, that's what you're kind of looking for, is that like ease of breathing, not to make it more complicated. And then mixing in that eucalyptus is super nice. If you don't have eucalyptus on hand, you can also use drops of oil in hot water and then just breathing in that steam. Like Dee, you dropped something in the group the other day about hanging eucalyptus in the shower. Same concept, same exact thing, you know? So if you boil a pot of water and then you just drop some oils in there and you can just sit over it and you can just breathe in those fumes for like 5 minutes or so, you're just getting that eucalyptus like into your body, right? And that's something that people like to do if you're saging yourself. For example, I sit there in front of it and I will have the sage going, for example, and I will be trying to waft it. So just kind of like pulling the air towards me and just allowing it to like actually cover my body, you know, so getting it everywhere, like wafting it into me. If you feel like the smoke is too intimidating, breathing it in, then don't do that. You know, it's totally fine. You can hold it around your body and you can just kind of allow it to move around you and just take your time, you know, like sit there and do that, set your intention, say I want to be healthy, say whatever it is that you're looking to get rid of, and just using it in that way. So like wafting it into me has been very important. Just like you're trying to get it in all the corners of your house when you're saging a space, you're also trying to get it into like yourself too, you know? So does that answer a bit more questions about that, or do you have anything more in specific along the lines of health?
No, you know, I am so loving. Literally, you covered everything in its entirety. You know what I mean? Because I've gone, no joke, because I'm like, I better take a note here in case I need to do this or in case I need to do that. But you've literally just taken everything from beginning to end. You know, the why, the when, you know, and I know I've really got to get better about, again, it's my anxiety, I think, when I got to stop interrupting. But I'm like, oh my gosh, I just wanted you to elaborate on that while you were there. And going, and that's exactly what's happening, you know, with the illness. That was exactly where I was headed with that. So I'm thinking if anybody watches it back, you know, they will understand the why. The main thing, especially for today, not main thing, but one of the things I'm really happy that you went back and hit on was that this is not an evil thing. You know what I'm saying? So many people do just, they can't open their mind because they do watch TV or read a book or something, you know what I mean? So they're instantly thinking it's evil. And like you said, you know, we have so many pagan practices people don't even understand. If they just look through history, you know what I mean? They'll see most everything comes from that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to start because I don't want, turn people off. But I'm just saying, Google, read a book, you know?
Like you said, it's super true. I mean, it's amazing. Almost all of our traditions throughout history are steeped in pagan traditions, like from Christmas to Easter to all of these, Christian holidays that we have, as well as other holidays all over the world celebrated in different cultures. Parts of them are all stemming from these other things, like in the spirit of Halloween, for example. The jack-o'-lantern, right? Like this was an old Celtic belief where they believed that people would come and because the veil is super thin around this time of year, is the belief around it, right? And so they think that you can engage with the spirits of the dead and they can come and they can like break the veil. Same in Mexico, it's Dia de los Muertos. People set up these amazing altars with the photos of their family to invite their deceased loved ones to come and to enjoy like all of these snacks and these things that they offer out for them. And so the jack-o'-lanterns was like a Celtic tradition where they were trying to scare away the bad spirits that were so able to access like the human world this time of year. So they would set these scary jack-o'-lanterns, which were originally turnips. Can you imagine? They probably looked even more frightening, but they would set them outside the door. And so that tradition is a Celtic pagan tradition, and we still carry this like jack-o'-lantern pumpkin carving thing with us on Halloween. And the idea of costumes was like dressing up so that the spirits would think you were one of them and weren't easily confused, right? So like you're in a costume, they're not going to be able to identify you as a human. So while they're walking around, on days like this, you'll just blend in and you won't be a target for it, And so all of these like really cool traditions, I think, around these different holidays do stem from all of this pagan stuff, like you said. And so I think we can kind of get this like negative connotation of pagan holidays as being like evil or sacrilegious, when in fact they are actually like roots of a lot of our religious practices. There's just a lot of links between this stuff, and the misconception and the loaded imagery around like Halloween and these scary things can sometimes be a bit much, but it's actually a really beautiful like harvest time of the year, fall, setting us up for winter, going into like a darker time, instead of so much light, where we get to kind of hibernate, where we get to look within a little bit more, where we get to kind of like harness that energy of like the moon going a bit darker, like the sun going a bit darker. And so I think it's really powerful. It's a cool time of the year. So yeah.
Girl, I'm blown away. I am completely blown away because that's it. That's it exactly. Do you know what I mean? And I know that when I started asking around, and I do see now though that I just asked the wrong question, because I said, well, hey, what's up with this saging? Because somebody mentioned that they sage. They said, because they said the word, I didn't know it was smudging, and I'm so done with just want to Google various stuff. I just, at this point, I've tried everything. I don't want to say that, but I've tried so much, done so much, you know what I mean? And I've done so much traditional Western medicine, but also anything anybody else has told me, like go to this Chinese shop and do this and do that. And like I said, I've been in a hospital a few times just from trying stuff. So at this point, I'm not pretending to know. Like, actually, I don't know anything. And I know there are a lot of people who maybe think they know things too. And also, just from when I asked that question about saging, look what I learned. I knew nothing. So, I know this will help others. And I'm thinking maybe, like you said, because there's more, to this and other reasons and other causes and other things, maybe we could make this like a monthly thing, or whenever you got time away from your, your everything, because man, you're overbooked and busy. We could plan something else, and we'll definitely let you guys know. We'll have it in group, or something like that. But in the meantime, I mean, we're going to put this on YouTube as soon as I figure that out. You can watch the replay in the group. If you have any questions, get with Lauryn. I mean, my goodness, well, okay, let me not say that. I'm not just saying go randomly seek her out on Facebook and start dropping messages, but just get with her and see if she can help in any reason. But again, I'm really hoping we can drag her back, because this was just, I can't wait to, and I'm sure it's going to be more questions, you know what I mean? Like, as we do those things, then that's when all the questions come up. It's like, okay, I have my 9 bundles now, because people like me ain't never going to just go get one. It's going to be the everything you mentioned, so then we're going to have to go through that. Yeah. So anyway, I'm so thankful that you are here. We didn't have any questions. We did have a comment from Lady Amy. She was actually doing had her windows open, I think she says. Yeah, she's trying to do them with the windows open. Isn't that something, So maybe, we can get back to her too with her question. But guys, if you still have questions, keep them coming. Just comment. Lauryn will go through there and get back. And, maybe we'll just, if it's too many, people acting the same thing, we'll just get back and do another live. So if there's any questions, you have any questions about smudging as a whole, if you have any other questions about the Soul Project and the products we use, get back with us. If you just got this video randomly by anybody else, get back with that person, because obviously they saw it and they are trying to heal too. All right. So we hope to.
Before you go.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry to interrupt you, but I saw a lady's comment on here, and she wrote, wow, this is super helpful. As a reader and tarot reader, intuitive reader, I was trained to do smudging with the windows open. I'm closing my windows and smudging now. And I wanted to add something to that. At the end of your smudging, yes, definitely open the windows and let all of that energy leave, right? Because you want the smoke to be able to pull everything out. But during the smudging practice, I as well started smudging with all the windows open, because nobody told me this for years. And it was only about 2 years ago that I was speaking with a friend, and she said, like, oh yeah, but you smudge with the windows closed, right? And I instantly knew why she would say this to me, but nobody had done it in the past. So I just wanted to clarify as well, like, yes, definitely smudge with them closed. I find that to be more beneficial for me. And then at the end, I open the windows to let all of that smoke release everything when I'm done with that ritual, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. And we'll also, she says yes. She totally gets it. So that's really good. So, I mean, just think about it. And she even had been trained, and still learning, and that's what I think this is. I think there isn't, there isn't a one way for everything. Just like, no. I mean, I have a ton of doctors, I can go see 5 and 4 will tell me something different. You know what I mean? It took them 4 years. I was near death before they finally decided, you know what? Yeah, these thousands of dollars of medication isn't working. But then you got, your holistic people saying, yeah, I think we're killing her, before they finally come to some kind of agreement. So I think sometimes it's a combination, which is what I think for me, because I know, even that's the one thing my doctors can agree on 100%. These products are the only reason I'm sitting here. You know what I mean? That's the only reason. So they can 100% agree with that, but they can't take it further. You know what I mean? And I can't take it further. I just can't say, oh, well, let me just go be a vegan monk somewhere and my life is going to change, and I'm not sure that's true anyway. But, so I think this is great. I think we need to just keep going, hit on things. Like you said, the trifecta, we have to hit it all, mind, body, and spirit. And I'm so thankful, we have you to kick us off. I'm so happy that we did this on Halloween too. You know what I mean? I wish we would have, did this earlier and we could have dressed or something, made it cute.
I tried to wear orange.
You know what? You're actually great. You know what I'm saying? You're just great because you just blew us out the water with your everything. You didn't even need costume. I need a costume so I could look, be a good sidekick. you know, so they could see I was here for a reason. So,
I love it. No, Dee, I love your energy. I love that. I love the group. You know, I love all the questions. I love the like ignorance on fire, you know, because I think that's what it's all about is like asking those questions and saying, like, yo, I'm hearing all about this, but I have no idea. Because what we've learned from our company is like connection is key, and we can learn so much from the people that we surround ourselves with. And quite often we can be really surprised at the things that people know, or you know, their areas of speciality or their interests, and it might be that we're finding these people because we're starting to align with those vibrations and align with like that curiosity. And so then here's this person all of a sudden that has the information you've been seeking, and I think that's just really cool. You know, I'm really proud of that connection. So
that we don't know, like I said, I don't want anyone to feel they have to know everything. That's the point, you know.
exactly.
Because, again, if there was one certain way, none of this would be happening anyway. All of us would be able to go buy one pill or do one thing, you know, and everything would be done, you know. So I know it's many different things, but I don't think you have to know everything to get started. So I'm just thrilled beyond belief to be able to start. I don't want anybody to think if you don't know anything, that's okay. Come, ask your question. You have no idea the questions I ask you, you know what I mean? Ask your questions. Join a group, invite your friends, you know what I mean? We can do this together. We will continue on, we will go forth, and we're going to heal. We're going to heal. So thank you guys for tuning in. Again, this will be up on YouTube. We're hoping, I don't know when, check the group. It'll be in the group for replay. And I am going to end recording. Let's see.